遅いな。終わりだ。
Fate Samurai Remnant is now on its third DLC expansion with Records Fragment, Bailong, and the Crimson Demon. To put it mildly, this DLC support for the entire game has been a mixed bag. Despite having a compelling setup, the Key and Command Championship felt like a shallow cop-out, lacking variation in its multiple playable master and servant pairs. Records Fragment, Yagu's Sword Chronicles was a step up narratively, even if that puts me in the minority on that reception. Still, it also suffered from a comically short playtime, making it vastly overpriced, especially in hindsight. So I naturally had reservations about how this final DLC will fare, and well, it's definitely more in line with Yagu's Sword Chronicles regarding structure and progression. Bailong and the Crimson Demon is a highly linear on-rails story experience that introduces two new servants. The premise is worth establishing first. In the third DLC, accessible on the world map once you reach the point of needing to speak to Gilgamesh during the Seek the Heroes That Survive objective in Chapter 3, a new conflict arises.
Lazy pixel.
The Waxing Moon ritual is impeded when numerous children start disappearing alongside reports of a seemingly foreign bird monster tied to the matter. The consequences become even more dire when the Master of Rider appears as a child and claims that Edo will be destroyed. Connecting to this incident is the first newly introduced servant, a rogue rider named Zhao Yun. He's searching for his young prince, who has been abducted by the same bird monster that is capturing the children. What makes this DLC stand out above the previous two releases is how it unites most of the masters and their tethered servants, even including the Waxing Moon ritual observer, Suki Mikado, under the common cause of combating the avian threat that is much more than any had bargained for. While the Key and Command Championship included every master and servant pair, it was often more comedic and lighthearted in tone with no genuine stakes at hand. Plus, the interactions were all brief and throwaway. On the other hand, the novelty of seeing almost everyone come together for a narrative purpose in this DLC makes it worthwhile alone. Just about everyone plays a notable role. From Kaimon and Lancer to Dorothea and Assassin, even if the pacing makes everything speed by a tad too quickly. Archer and Setsetsu are among the most prominent in presence, with Iori and Saber taking a moderate backseat throughout the plot and combat encounters. This alteration in direction appreciatively focused on more members of the main cast, which is something I wish the collective DLC did more substantially. Further, seeing so many of the characters unite felt like fitting curtain call, so there's no more announced DLC in the works at this time. Alas, the new rogue rider servant is the weak link that brought the experience down a few notches. Zhao Yun has the clear goal of trying to save the young prince snatched by the bird monster, but you feel nothing for him as a character since he has literally just appeared. More than any other servant, Zhao likely highly benefits from you knowing his source material, that being the Three Kingdoms period, and this is where it lost me. Contrasting Yagu in the second DLC, where presence and personality made him immensely captivating in a more compact scale tone, Zhao is only traditionally virtuous and noble, which doesn't make a memorable first impression. I won't discuss the only newly introduced servant, the rogue berserker, since significant narrative spoilers veil them. However, their story implementation was much more effective, thanks to the messy yet well-conceptualized bond with one of the main characters. As for the gameplay, both Rogue, Berserker, and Zhao are pretty enjoyable, with the latter even being one of the most entertaining playable servants in the game as a whole. His mobility and aerial capabilities flow so satisfyingly well that I'm eager to play as him more in Battle Recollections. Speaking of, completing this DLC scenario gives similar rewards as the previous DLC packs: playable access to new servants, new battle recollections, new equipment, and a new battle technique. Plus, a new digression or side quest opens up once you complete the main events, and it's well worth your while since finishing that sequence grants the ability to use Rogue Berserker in Battle Recollection and such. At the end of the road, it's clear that none of the Fate Samurai Remnant DLCs are worth picking up unless you're exceptionally dedicated Fate or Type Moon fan. The gameplay boons and supplemental narrative additions are neat, but rarely are they substantial enough to warrant sitting through them. Records Fragment, Bailong, and the Crimson Demon will likely appease those remotely interested though, since the novelty of seeing so much of the main cast unite under a common cause is a sight to behold. The shifted focus from Iori and Saber to the other master-servant pairs is also a great touch. Still, the lack of effective Zhao Yun incorporation stands out in this brief playtime, and the swiftness of the pacing makes it feel like the scenario was too ambitious for its own good. Noisy Pixel is giving Records Fragment, Bailong, and the Crimson Demon a 7 out of 10. Thanks for watching. This video is brought to you by our supporters on Patreon. Noisy Pixel is run by a group of gamers providing independent gaming coverage through news, reviews, previews, and more. Check out our Patreon to help support our continued growth, and subscribe to keep up with all our future content.
Noisy Pixel.